Hello, I'm Scimone-Almasy. I'm here to speak to you regarding the importance of specially trained officers in the area of crisis intervention with the mentally ill. What holds the promise for our future is when someone comes along with fresh eyes who can look at a problem from a new perspective and who then says, "What if we tried this?" In 1988, in Memphis, Tennessee, just such a person came along. Responding to a series of bad outcomes involving police use of force against people with serious mental illness, then Lieutenant Sam Cochran developed a new approach, partnering with mental health colleagues to develop the first Crisis Intervention Team, CIT. Have you heard of Crisis Intervention Teams, CIT? Does it exist in your area? It is 2012, 24 years after the idea of community, mental health professionals, and this highly rated training from previous attendees. The result? Many counties still do not have a CIT. Even with 60% of society having some form of mental health issues, still not in every county. Killings continue, still no CIT program in many communities. So where do we go from here? Social media. After you listen to this brief presentation given at Pasco County, Florida for CIT training through NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and believe your community would benefit from CIT trained officers, please call your local NAMI affiliate. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or visit nami.org to request information on CIT or any information on the mentally ill. Robert H. Schuler asked, "What great thing would you attempt if you knew you could not fail?" Everyone has a different perspective on what great is. To some, great is becoming a foster parent. To others, great is photographing the climb of Mount Everest. And to others, great is being a true hero, helping when life is too hard to take without help. So I ask you again, what great thing would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? If you do not have an answer for this question, I hope you find one. I was asked to speak on mental illness today, even though I am not a professional speaker. I was given NAMI guidelines to follow and questions that might help me through the process of this preparation. One question was, how do you feel mental illness has affected your family? I can tell you the devastating effects of the illness for me, but for many other families that have been affected and are not represented here today, I would like to spend just another moment. Her name was Kirsten Shrunk, a young mother of 3 children. Her loving husband arrived home from a short business trip to find her in a pool of blood in their Carrollwood home. Kiki, as we called her, took her life when she couldn't get out of that dark place, as she described it. Kiki didn't have the right cocktail of meds, and before her doctor could change them yet again, she decided enough was enough. Kiki, you are sorely missed. In Staten Island, New York, Eric Belushi stabbed his parents while they slept. He was in an episode and had no idea of what he had done. He will spend all of his days in jail because he is mentally ill. Eric, I pray for you. Anthony DiGeronimo of Massapequa, New York, was on a street with a knife. He ran into his home. His parents called 911. An off-duty police officer, Jeffrey Brethkow, arrived in plain clothes to assist and was accidentally killed when he pulled his gun. 2 people died that day. A 21-year-old son with a mental illness and a father of 2 babies. Not all of the mentally ill are seriously ill. These cases are extreme. They are what feed the news frenzy and keeps the stigma of mental illness alive. These stories all differ, but there is one common thread. The mentally ill and their family need your help. They need hope, and when you arrive, many times, you are their last shred of hope. Most don't want to call 911, but have no choice when they can no longer control the uncontrollable situation. Why? In a perfect world, everyone would be diagnosed correctly. Everyone would take their meds. Every cocktail of meds would work. Every doctor would truly take an interest in every patient they have, and there would be no need for this course. But the system is broken. These people and their families are broken, and on a much larger scale, the world is a very broken place. And for the mentally ill who are mocked, isolated, ignored, demoralized, and incarcerated because of something they don't even remember doing, their world is shattered beyond our understanding. Hopes and dreams crushed by a brain disorder, a disorder that affects more of society than cancer and heart disease put together. I'm sure each of you have been to a doctor, hired a CPA or an accountant, spoke to your local gas station clerk, or even spent time with a fellow officer. Any of these people may have mental illness and are someone's parent, sibling, or friend, deserving of love, hope, and respect. I will ask you to become a hero when confronted with these people having a mental illness, because the person you may be helping is a hero as well. A hero for getting up each morning, for getting through yet another day, and for going to work in whatever capacity with a debilitating disease. Here is my story. We grew up in a much enmeshed, loving Italian family. We were raised with a hard-working father and a stay-at-home mom, and grandmother and grandfather that kept us in line. Sundays were set aside with immediate and extended family at our home for an all-day affair of dinner, games, and sharing. There was no drinking, cursing, no outward appearance that there was any dysfunction in our home until my brother John turned 13. John was 17 months younger than I. At the time of his demise, he was 38, brilliant, spiritual, great career, charitable, and would take the shirt off his back for just about anyone. And many times that's just what he did. He was compassionate and loved everyone. He saw no race, didn't concern himself with your religion or educational level. He befriended the homeless and knew people in high places. He got into what was called the drug scene in the 70s. At the time, he did strange things that we now know was OCD, but we attributed his odd behavior to drugs. Unfortunately, John overdosed on my 40th birthday. He arrived in New York for a surprise party for me, went back to his old drug haunt, and died alone in a bathroom in Brooklyn shortly thereafter. I know dogs that have died with more dignity than John. What we later learned was that he had an undiagnosed mental illness. That was 17 years ago. I still cry, I still long to hold him, still wish I could hear his voice, and foolishly hope that one day he will walk in for dinner. Both my parents were alive at the time. From the day he died, my mother cried every day, asking the Lord to unite her with her son. Less than 2 years later, she joined my brother John. Months before she passed, my mother could not walk. There were times I carried her from room to room. I tell you this because the day she died, I saw her and my brother dancing on the front lawn. My mother was dancing. 1 month later, and without warning, my baby brother Thomas, who was 38 at the time, had what was called a breakdown, or a psychotic break. The first 5 years were very difficult at best, since we had no idea what to expect and how to deal with it. He was in and out of hospitals. One of the difficulties with Thomas was that he presented well. The doctors would always tell us to tell law enforcement that he was tough to read since he presented so well. Many of the times police would leave, and a day later, when he was in a full-blown episode, they would transport. There wasn't a day that a family member wasn't with him at each stay. He received encouragement, compassion, and an outpouring of love. Yet mental illness knows no boundaries. It does not discriminate. It doesn't care if you are rich or poor, black or white, male or female. It touches everyone. The police were called many times to escort Thomas to the hospital to be evaluated. One officer in particular, Officer Lynch, would come to the house to speak with Thomas with such kindness that I wrote a letter of recommendation for him. He wanted to change his beat, and my letter allowed him to do just that. It was very hard because Lynch was always there for us, and we never experienced that kind of rapport ever again. He would sit with Thomas and say, "Hey, Thomas, if I take you, you know the deal, handcuffs, cruiser. Why don't you just get in the car with your sister and allow her to take you to the hospital?" But Thomas would march into his room, get his coat, and they would leave with me tagging behind. It is now 2010. My brother Thomas has been diagnosed with bipolar for 10 years and has successfully spent the last 5 years out of the hospital with few challenges and a satisfying and mostly happy life. Thomas was a teacher. He taught at-risk teens a trade at a tech school in New York, but retired soon after his break. It's November 20th, and Thomas is likely in an episode, battling the demons once again, and runs into the street with an unloaded antique rifle in his hand, running from whatever only he sees. 7 officers arrived. None of them had CIT training. He is shot at 42 times from 5 of the 7 officers. Thomas is now down on his knees, according to the police report. He is hit with 2 or 3 more bullets. That was not life-threatening at the time. They stopped the shooting and asked him to put the gun down. According to the report, he answers them by saying, "I can't do that, man," and then 2 officers open fire, hitting him with 5 more bullets, 1 to the head. My 88-year-old father will now be forced to say goodbye to yet another son. On Thanksgiving Day, while you enjoyed your turkey, my 2 sisters and I sat and watched my brother take his last breath. Have you ever watched a loved one die? It is the most heart-wrenching feeling that I cannot describe. I was numb, but as I sat there, I remembered the nights Thomas and I would look through the dictionary to learn 2 new words, and we had to use them in a sentence. Pandemonious pachyderm was the only one I can think of. When he was a child, he had a difficult time pronouncing Patricia. It came out Bedibada. That is my nickname. He called me that with such an endearing voice. Bedibada. I hear him call to me. It took him 3 hours to pass. They were only able to harvest his cornea. He didn't pass in time to take other organs, including his heart. Today I have spoken about what to me was unspeakable. If you would have asked me to come before you last year, I not only couldn't, I wouldn't have. I was so beside myself that I wasn't eating, sleeping, or thinking clearly. So depressed that I needed to be placed on drugs. I attended Grief Share and needed to seek counseling. I was angry, very, very angry. An anger that I never knew I could own was inside of me. So angry that I promised my brother that I would avenge his death by killing the officers that killed him. But today, through the grace of God and my love of life, I can stand before you with only love and hope. Hope that one day I have the opportunity to stand in a CIT class in New York before all of the officers that responded to the call that evening and give them what I hope I have given to you: insight, empathy, and a dose of a very sad reality. None of us can go back to that night or any other night. We can only move forward and make today count. I can make today count by speaking up and speaking out everywhere I can. But you can make a bigger difference. You can be a hero. You can add to your arsenal not another gun or a better pepper spray. You can be armed with knowledge, CIT knowledge. I applaud each and every one of you for being here today. I pray for each one of you as you go about your daily work to make good split-second decisions and that you stay safe. God bless you all, and I thank you for your precious time. Today reminds me of what Theodore Roosevelt said: "Great thoughts speak only to the thoughtful mind, but great actions speak to all mankind." What great action will you do for mankind? I leave you with this last thought that will haunt me for the rest of my life. What if they had continued the conversation? What if they had asked him why he couldn't put the gun down? What if they asked him if any one of them could help him? What if just one of them were CIT trained? Thank you for your time. Please continue to view some of the many individuals affected by mental illness. You may be very much surprised.
There comes a time in everyone's life where nothing seems to go the way, where nothing seems to turn out right. There may come a time you just can't seem to find your place, and for every door you open, seems like you get to slam in your face. That's when you need someone that you can call when all your faith is gone. It feels like you can't go on. Let it be me. Let it be me. If it's a friend that you need, let it be me. Let it be me. Feels like you're always coming up last. Pockets full of nothing, ain't got no cash. No matter where you turn, you ain't got no place to stand. You reach out for something and they slap your hand. place you can call home. That's when you need someone that you can't call when all your faith is gone. It feels like you can't go home. Let it be me. Let it be me. If it's a friend you need, let it be me. Let it be me. Let it be me. Let it be me. If it's a friend you need, let it be me. Let it be me. Let it be me. There comes a time in everyone's life where nothing seems to go the way, where nothing seems to turn out right. There may come a time you just can't seem to find your place. And for every door you open, seems like you get to slam in your face. That's when you need someone